The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome to it. We're a day later than what we would prefer to be, but these things can't be helped sometimes. So we're just rolling with the flow on this week. The main thing I want to talk about here, and Matt and I, you and I didn't have the chance to kind of go over this earlier on. I want to talk a little bit about this Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Carson Hocevar thing. To me, this is something that has been blown so ridiculously out of proportion, I can't see straight. And you know this. You know, you get into racing and you start working your way up levels. And as you get to better and better competition, your relative lack of experience shows, right?
It does.
So the problem that I've got here is that, yeah, Carson Hocevar's got some rough edges. They just haven't been smoothed off. That's going to take time.
Yeah, but he's got enough experience behind the wheel that he knows where to find that fine line.
The thing that gets me is that I think about a couple of those drivers that are right up here. You know, I've got cars from Darrell Waltrip. I got cars from Tony Stewart. I remember when both of them first got into Cup Series racing, and they had that rough around the edges look. Talent, yes, they're in spades.
Yeah.
But they ticked off some other drivers with the way that they were going about it on the track. And these two aren't the only two. Far from it, in fact. You think of the Ernie Irvins. You think of Dale Earnhardt Sr. We just watched the documentary that came out on Amazon Prime, and it detailed it fantastically how rough he was and how many people got upset at Dale Earnhardt. These are things that he's just going to have to learn. And again, it's going to take time. And I don't think it's going to take that much time. I think he's that talented.
Yeah, it's going to take him some time. How long it's going to take him, don't know. But he will get better over time. I mean, you can see that he's slowly evolving race by race. Is it going to be perfect? No.
Yeah. I was kind of trying to think about it. I mean, Tony Stewart ends up winning a championship in his third year after winning Rookie of the Year. Darrell Waltrip didn't win his championship until he got into the 80s. So he'd been in it, 7-8 years?
Yes.
I think it kind of varies from driver to driver. And it takes a certain kind of owner that understands how to, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Facilitate's not the right word. Maybe accelerate might be a better word for it. The process of trying to smooth those rough edges off. I mean, we saw it in the movie Days of Thunder, and it's obviously a much faster and more condensed way of looking at things. But Cole Trickle comes in, and he is just so raw and rough around the edges, but you can tell the talent is there. And then they start testing for the course of what seems like a day. And then all of a sudden, all the rough edges are gone. I don't think it's going to happen like that. But if we give this guy a year or two, we'll start to see that progress, I think.
Yeah, it will. But the difference in between yesteryear, let's call it that, yesteryear.
Okay.
With the likes of Waltrip, Stewart, Earnhardt, Elliott, etc. Versus now is you got some other, how do I word this? You got some other shoes out there that can be just as eager as Hocevar is. And there's really not a huge massive veteran presence anymore
Right.
to tone them down. Really, the only ones that you really have that is a massive veteran presence, to me, you can really only put two people in that category, and that's Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
Other than
And you
that,
want to
there's
talk about
really not
another
any.
driver that knows exactly how he's gone through that process too. I mean, let's face it, Kyle Busch ruffled a whole lot of feathers on his way up.
Absolutely. So
I don't know if Denny Hamlin is necessarily going to be willing to mentor, but I would think mainly because I look at it this way. Them being both in the Chevrolet camp, Kyle Busch might be a guy who might be willing to mentor him. Maybe.
yeah, but see the thing with Denny, everybody sees him as the villain now. Basically, where they said they used to see
Yeah.
Kyle Busch,
Right.
but as from a driving standpoint and from a owner / business standpoint, Denny Hamlin's probably the most savvy one out there. So if I'm coming up through and let's just say I'm in the Toyota Fall. Let's just
Okay.
say that. And there's somebody that I'm wanting to look at, to talk to kind of pick their mind a little bit. I'm going to Denny Hamlin first.
Okay.
I'm going to go to Denny Hamlin first.
And I certainly can't argue that.
Yeah. That's going to be the one that goes through me first.
Okay. I would just wonder whether or not he's willing to help out a driver from another camp that much.
I would guarantee you if they came to him in a cordial, professional way, he probably would.
Okay. All right. And I would certainly think that would be a great role for him to get into. You and I both know this. With his age, he even knows this. He's got far more racing days behind him than he does ahead of him. He's still talented. He can still win races. He can still compete for a championship if his team doesn't stub their toe every time they get the opportunity.
Right.
But how many more years does he realistically got behind the wheel?
Denny is only a couple years older than me. I could legitimately see Denny Hamlin going another 3 or 4 years.
Okay. And considering he came in the mid to late 2000s, yeah, that's not a bad run.
No, not at all.
No. Okay. Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s reaction when he got out of the car, heat of the moment or justified?
Heat of the moment.
And that's kind of what I figured. And
Heat of the moment.
yeah, I mean, this is one of those situations where you're dealing, in my mind, with the immediacy, the aftermath, how everything kind of worked out that way. And this could be racing, it could be football, it could be baseball. It doesn't matter what the sport is. You're just done for whatever reason, whether or not you played the whole thing out or whether you got, in the case of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., wrecked, or maybe you got ejected from the game for whatever reason. Talking to you as you just now get off the playing field, whatever that playing field looks like, you're dealing with the heat of the moment issue. So now we get to the question of, can Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Carson Hocevar talk this out?
I would say yes, they probably can. But I always, when you get instances like this, I always go back to what my mentor, Alan Revis, always told me when I was coming through driving. Your rear end, he didn't word it that way, but I'm going to word it this way.
Okay.
Your rear end will tell you immediately if contact made from another car to you is intentional or if it was unintentional. It will let you know really quick.
Sure.
But you're going to have you're going to have that heat of the moment instance to where you're going to immediately think it's intentional.
Sure.
And in hindsight being 2020, it's probably hard racing and something unintentional.
Should, in this case, Amazon Prime, or for that matter, PRN, who was there at the track, should they give these drivers a moment to cool down and see a replay and be able to judge better whether or not it truly was intentional? Again, if you hit me and I end up into the wall, my immediate reaction, yes, is probably to think, well, he shoved me out of the way because he wasn't getting what he wanted immediately. Facts may turn out to be later on that something else happened. So should there be a mandatory cool-off period? Or does it make for better radio / television to have these drivers in the height of their emotions?
See, that's where the height of it, you said right there, the height of the emotion factor, where it comes in. That's where you hear some people will sit and say that this is turning into too much like sports entertainment instead of actual sports.
Yeah, but in this case, it's unscripted. This is raw. I mean, this isn't,
Yeah,
I know that there are conspiracy theorists out there.
Yes, it's definitely raw. I'm not taking away from that point of it at all. It's definitely raw. Okay. But you've really got to have that, let's call it that time gap. Let's call it a time gap.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
To where you go and you talk to whoever may have it, whoever that may be. Whether if I've got, because I'm going to use Marty Snyder for an example, because even though most of the time they send Kim Coon to do all the trash cleanup, let's call it that.
Sure.
I'm going to say Marty Snyder. I'm like, Marty, give me a minute. I want to see a replay of what happened before I open my mouth and I may say something crazy.
So you as the driver would request a moment.
Give me a minute. Let me see what happened before I rush to judgment.
Okay. And you and I both know this. When it comes to those interviews, TV gets precedence. Then it's the network, PRN, MRN. And then it's, if there's anybody else left, they get last dibs.
Yep. They're right there on top of them.
So with that being in effect, know that in this case it's Amazon Prime.
No telling.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And we know this too. I mean, you and I have seen this, whether it's at Talladega or the other tracks that we go to, whether we worked it or whether or not that we were just there to observe and to report. And that way we had the on-hand way of putting it when we do this podcast or do the big show on Saturday. We know that there is a production person that is carrying around on a stick a monitor that they can show the replay to the driver.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they got to go to the media center or something and say, okay, have I missed the replay? They can get it pretty much on demand. So if you're my driver, I'll put you in the place of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and I'm in the place of Marty Snyder. You ask me for that. All I got to do is get onto my headsets and say, hey, can you feed me a replay through my monitor and I can show it to you.
Right. I've visually seen that very scenario happen. So I know it can happen.
So instead of trying to get on the air so ridiculously fast, Amazon Prime, Fox, TNT, TBS, NBC, they should all be willing to, if the driver asks, to let them see the replay before they go on the air with them?
They should. Absolutely, they should.
But the question is will they? And that I'm not so certain of the answer of.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's the sad part about it.
Yep.
And then the other part of it, and we're going to detail this more on the big show on Saturday, but there is $1 million challenge that's getting ready to kick off here. And it's not going to be this weekend, although this weekend has a little bit of a play in it, and that was start to set this field of 32. And it's going to be over a 5-race run where we go from 32 drivers to 16, 16 drivers to 8, 8 to 4, 4 to 2, and then those two battle it out. And that'll be at Atlanta. So a little bit of a wild card, not as much as it used to be, certainly not as big as a Daytona or Talladega. But the person who comes out of this bracket comes out with a cool $1 million. To me, while I think it's fantastic for the drivers, this is a gimmick. And
it's too much of a gimmick because really, in my opinion, it's not a 5-race tournament. It's really more of an 8-race tournament.
Well, yeah, because they're going to give them 3 races to set the seeding of who's 1 through 32 and who are the guys that are left out. Because as we all know, there are 36 chartered cars, at least for now.
Michigan, Mexico, and Pocono be the 3 seeding races, and at Atlanta, let me stress that, definite interesting place to open the race at for sure.
Well,
no doubt.
If you think about it, none of the 3 of them are actually all that normal of a track. I mean, Michigan is now the 1 2-mile tri-oval since Auto Club is no longer in existence. They call it the Tricky Triangle for a reason. It is a very oddly shaped track, and if you come there with a badly set up car, you're chasing it all day long, and somebody who hit on it, you're toast. And it's a road course. I don't, call it whatever you want, Mexico City or Watkins Glen or Sonoma or wherever. The point is, it's a road course, and road courses are a little bit of a wild card too. I'm not so certain that these 3 races that they're going to use in order to set this 32 seeds is the best 3 races to really get an idea of who the best are, because it's not based on points. It's based upon your finishing performance over those
average finish over those 3 races. Yeah.
If you're a road course ace, that means a lot more than if you're a guy who really, you might be very good at Pocono, for example, but you stink to high heaven at a road course.
The way this sets up and the way it aligns, dare I say, I'm gonna say it right now. Depending on how the seeding goes,
okay,
if these 2 advance past Atlanta, I would dare say that someone of the likes of Shane Van Gisbergen or AJ Allmendinger or both could be sitting in the catbird seat heading into Dover, because you have 2 road courses back to back with Chicago and Sonoma.
Yeah.
They easily could be.
Oh, yeah. All they got to do is survive Atlanta.
Whoever they're paired up against, beat them in Atlanta, and you're in DC.
Yeah, exactly. Again, do I have a problem with the fact that they're giving these drivers a chance to claim an extra $1 million? No, I don't have a problem with that. The problem that I have with it is that it's gimmicky. It is. I equate it to the NBA's idea of what they call an in-season tournament. Nobody knows it. Nobody needs a dang in-season tournament. The only reason you're trying to drum up anything is because the earliest that anybody gives a rat's ass, pardon my French, about what's going on in the NBA is Christmas. Yeah, we don't care about the NBA until Christmas.
Right. I just come across a graphic here of the qualified drivers that qualified for the tournament.
Okay.
Which seeding was made after Nashville.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah. Last week was the first race.
The 4 that missed the cut, Cody Ware, no surprise.
Not really, no.
Raleigh Earps missed the cut.
I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not.
Cole Custer missed the cut.
It's a little surprising because we've seen signs of life out of them.
And this is going to be, honestly, pretty bad if you ask me. Shane Van Gisbergen missed the cut.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to stick.
he missed the cut. He's not going to be in the tournament challenge because he missed the cut because he's not going to be able to run the seeding races at Michigan, Mexico City, and Pocono.
Oh, that's true too. God, that's
going to
all right. So
that's going to be bad. But
let's put it into the factor of, okay, those are the 4 that missed. Who are the surprises? And I don't have that chart in front of me. You do. Who are the surprises to you that are in that probably will get waxed?
I'm going to say after Atlanta. Atlanta. That's where you got to throw that question mark up at, because now Atlanta. I'm stressing that.
I know.
Being like a super speedway now, it's that quarter flip race.
Sure.
But if it was in the sense of like an old school super speedway, old school mile and a half, excuse me, I would say Atlanta, you would see the ones that would be in jeopardy would be the ones of like Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon, Ty Gilliland, Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek, Michael McDowell, Ryan Preece, Zane Smith. But with it being like a super speedway now, you really gotta throw the question mark up here.
Zane Smith, I understand. Todd Gilliland, I understand. I'm not so certain I would put Ryan Preece in there based upon what we've seen out of the 60 car. The 60 car seems to actually be the class of RFK racing, and they have been competitive.
Right now. Yeah, right now. But, I mean, Brad Keselowski, he's been too inconsistent. So you definitely have to say that.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
I'm going to, right now, I'm going to hold judgment on that one, because looking at who qualified to this right here, the two that, because of out of who all qualified and how well they have performed on road courses in recent memory, the recent last few years since the existence of this Gen 7 tank.
Right.
I want to see the pairing who goes against AJ Allmendinger and who goes against Michael McDowell.
Yeah.
Because if those two, in my opinion, get through Atlanta and they advance, they're in a prime position.
Oh, heck yeah!
To get to the Final Four at Dover.
Yeah, these two, the next 2 tracks after Atlanta play to their strength. To your point, absolutely,
absolutely, and then some.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with that 100%.
Wild card, 100%. What the definite wild card? Austin Cindric gets through Atlanta unscathed, which I would say he's got a better than really good odds of doing so.
I would agree.
He's got a pretty strong road course background too.
Yes, he does.
So that's another one.
Yeah.
So this is SVG missing the cut. My opinion kind of spoils this. Because
in some ways.
He could make a run in this tournament challenge.
I agree. And again, a lot of that has to do with just the way that it all falls. And again, congratulations on NASCAR for coming up with something that gives these drivers a chance to go for something. But this might be a little bit too gimmicky, and they might want to take a closer look at it, especially which races are going to be involved in it if they're going to continue this and do this again next year and in the years to come. Because doing it in this particular setup, it might play to the strengths of one driver a little bit too much versus the weakness of other drivers. The dichotomy is it's not the difference between a Bristol or a Martinsville or a Richmond and a Charlotte. It is night and day. It's Talladega versus Sonoma.
Agreed.
So
Dover being in it's beyond me.
Yeah. Well, Dover in it, and again, back-to-back road/street courses. Watch it. That plays to the strength of a select few drivers who are just that good at road and street course racing, whereas it is a weakness still. I mean, as good as these drivers are and as much more attention as they're paying to it now versus 15 years ago. I mean, 15 years ago, when you only had 2 road courses on the schedule, you could kind of punt. But now if you're doing 5 and 6 and sometimes 7 road courses on the schedule in a year, you can't punt on a road course. You have to pay attention to it. So these Cup Series drivers, they've gotten better at it, but there are still specialists in there. And you and I well know that Shane Van Gisbergen is one of those and AJ Allmendinger is another. And that's why you mentioned those particular names.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk a little bit about DQs. This seems to be the year of the disqualification. And it's not just in NASCAR either. I mean, we're seeing it in IndyCar. We've seen it a bit in Formula One too, and Formula E. I don't know what it is, something in the water, but it seems like disqualifications this year are up way over any other year. We've got another one to talk about, which we'll talk about on the big show coming up on Saturday. Fill you in a little bit more as we continue to kind of find out what's going to happen. Maybe a phone call, maybe a face-to-face, hey, let's go out and grab a bite to eat and talk this thing out, meeting between Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Carson Hocevar. Never know. Might happen. Plus, we'll talk about IndyCar, and there's a couple of people grumbling about where they're racing in Detroit right now. Could it be that they might be headed back someplace else? We'll talk about that. That and a whole lot more. It's coming up on the big show. Don't forget it. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time, right here on CRN Live on YouTube. If you are on CRN Live on YouTube and you have not yet done so, right down below is the subscribe button. We not only ask you to do that, but of course our fine friends at Jocks TV. If you haven't done it there, please do so there as well, because they are great partners of ours and we appreciate them. And to that point, we thank producer Molly. We thank our very own producer John for helping out. That is Matt Nicholson. I'm Steve West. We'll talk to you Saturday morning for 2 hours of racing talk on the big show on CRN. Make sure you join us then. In the meantime, have a great rest of your week.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.